Mishra to take the chair. Samni Charitra Pragyaji, chair the panel discussion.
Good evening to all of you. We are now on the stage on a very important part of this conference, that is the panel discussion. And this panel discussion is on how to develop national and international collaborations for practices of science in Jain philosophy. So, dear friends, now is the time when we should pay more attention. There are identified goals what we are looking in this panel discussion. And first of all, let me welcome all the panelists on the dais here. On my extreme left is Professor Bhatt from IIT, Professor Nair from Indian Institute of Technology, and Om Prakash Dubeji is from former director of World Bank. Sudhir Jain is right here on my right. And this session is chaired by me, and our co-chair is the Vice Chancellor of Jain Vishwabharati University, Charitra ji. What I want to do is, and what we aim in this session is, to discuss in a very focused way. We have 90 minutes, and we discuss in a very focused way what are the areas that can be taken up for research and what kind of collaborations can be established in various universities, institutes, including IIT Bombay, University of Bombay. What we are looking for is that something very novel kind of research project should come out. There are questions since morning you have seen, certain topics that have been mentioned here by learned speakers. There are questions in the mind of philosophers, there are questions in the mind of scientists. Also, there are certain emphatic statements by the spiritual leaders. Well taken. Absolutely, there is no any difference of opinion on that. What we need to do, what we aim to do now is how to identify some of the research areas, how to identify, let's say after 2 years or 3 years we meet again, what we will have in substance to tell that this is what we achieved in this conference. And we took off certain things, and in 2 years we have done this now. So that's the kind of question we want to discuss in this panel discussion. What I propose to do is that we will request panelists to make their point of view within the objective of this panel discussion, about 10 minutes, and then I will invite the discussion from the floor. What I expect is the esteemed panelist will say something, whatever is their viewpoint, but actively I want discussion from floor. So this session is essentially the floor discussion, floor participation. This is my request. Anyone from the spiritual side, from the philosophy side, from science side. A few of the points that I want to mention within the scope of this panel discussion is, we have to develop science-based research projects within the context of practices, teachings of Jainism. This should be very clear. We are not going to deviate much. Science has got a wide scope. But the science that we want to do now within this objective is the science related to the practices of Jainism. Many of you must have seen, and I was sitting just now in the other hall, very interesting discussions arose there, very nice presentations were there. But what comes to me as a pure scientist, to my mind, is that we have to substantiate some of those ideas, some of those statements which are being made. And the very goal of this panel discussion will be, and tomorrow we will have another one, and then there is a roundtable discussion. We must concretize our plan, what we want to do, where we want to focus on, what are the issues we should address, what are the questions that public is asking us within the scope of science and spirituality, what can be done that we are able to address through our research. Research doing purely on without much basis is not going to have any credence. Therefore, just like in basic sciences, we have done very remarkable contribution for advancement of knowledge, for developing technology, and for setting new directions. Similar thing has to be done within the scope of fusion of science and spirituality. You have just heard the very illustrious lecture of Professor Roger Penrose, who gave very beautiful idea that he accommodates the principle of second law of thermodynamics and explains that this expanding universe, expanding in space, how it is cyclic in nature. For the first time, it's a new idea. Because Big Bang we believed, but he says now this Big Bang comes and goes, not just one Big Bang. A cycle goes and closes, and another cycle begins. That's the kind of concept that we saw here. So, ladies and gentlemen, my request is that let us start some of the areas of research, and we invite your collaboration. Maybe within these 2 days of his stay, whatever emerges with you, you can give the material to me or to my co-chairperson, Charitraji, and we will note it down and we'll present in the valedictory function, or we will feed it to Dr. Bhandariji, who is going to make the concise statement on the whole thing. A few points that I want to mention here is, you saw the questions of rebirth. You saw the questions of, let us say, what kind of life and then what kind of thoughts, what kind of personality, what kind of man's behavior. You also have questions on what is the ultimate purpose of our life? Can we make light on it? Can we throw light on it? Can we enlighten people? Can we get something from research? How spirituality should be taking a shape. And I'm fascinated to say one point, and that is how spirituality should bring out some technology which should be useful to mankind. Science has brought enough technology, and we are enjoying the fruits of it. Spirituality has to bring technology which should touch the life of people, which should transform society, which should bring new things. In my remark, the last point that I want to make is the structure of soul, definition of soul, concept of soul. I was amazed on this dais in the morning, statements were made that it is impossible to detect soul. But as a scientist, I would like to mention, we are very close to detecting soul, because the fastness of the electronic system, the precision of the Excel system of the taking photography, when in human body, the smallest part of 1 millimeter, now we can image. Anything which is invisible today, we have to image that. And this imaging is possible by developing new technology. I think our mistake is somewhere, as a scientist, this statement I'm making, that we think that by present level of knowledge, present viewpoints that we have got in science, it is through that we will be able to detect what is stated to be something very unique, soul and consciousness in spirituality. I imagine that we have to develop entirely new technology. We have to come up with entirely new education system. And that's the kind of thing we want to discuss in this panel discussion. Just to give you an example, teletransportation is one of the developing field of science today. That means we can make a person disappear right in front of you, although he exists. You don't see. That kind of technology is coming. which means even if soul leaves one body and goes to enter another body, as scientists, we should be able to track it. We will be able to making remarkable contribution if that kind of thing happens. And that's the kind of wild thinking that we want to discuss in panel discussions. I strongly believe that with your efforts, with the knowledge that we have, scriptures what are speaking, many of these spiritual practices that we have, there is enormous knowledge. But it is our naiveness, it is our ignorance that we have not been able to touch upon them. I think it is time that we should get excited to take up some such research. And I was talking to Chaitanya-ji, and also I have been inducing our Vice Chancellor, Charitra-ji, that some such solid projects of research should be taken up, not just routine, which doesn't have. Professor Akasaka is here, and I have been associated with some of the research program of Japanese government. Futuristic research they have. Billions of dollars are given, no questions are asked what will happen in the future. That kind of research has to be taken up. Futuristic research. Maybe we fail, and let's be courageous to admit that we failed in that project. But take up the project, initiate. It is possible in our lifetime certain things don't happen. It is possible that in this generation we have not been able to get much headway on some of such ideas, but we will open it for new generation, these questions. And there are brilliant minds who will take it up, and maybe they come up with the answer. But we should begin asking these big questions. So my respect to all of you, and with this humble little introduction that I have given, we will begin this panel discussion. Now we have here the panelist, Mr. Om Prakash Dubey. Please come and express your viewpoints. Thank you. Mr. Dubey.
Om Araham. First, I would like to salute the organization and organizer of this conference, great conference, who have done wonderful job, not only looking after us, all the visitors, I mean, but being everything possible way, I think, tending to the perfection. I would like to thank Professor K.P. Mishra, who is very well known to me, who encouraged me, and he is the person who make me to come here. So I thank him with my sincere regard to him. And I am discussing here science, spirituality. So what I would like to talk, Big Bang of the scientific world and big vision of spirituality. And I would also like to make a pool between the science and spirituality. Not I think, because I am just an ordinary person. Whatever I speak or whatever I know, I read somewhere and I manipulate in my own way, in my own language, and I speak to the people. No doubt, science is very, very important, but not without spirituality. When the science is alone, of course, it can give the temporary pleasure, temporary facilities, but not the consolation of the mind, not the satisfaction. A person has everything in the life, no doubt.
Invite Professor Ranjit Nair,
You opened it.
the President of World Institute for Advanced Study and Director of the Center for Philosophy and Foundation of Science, New Delhi.
No, your pen
He
drive.
has his education in science and has been instrumental in doing many important studies in physics. Dr. Nair, please you may kindly express yourself.
You want to take this? Thank you very much. It's a great pleasure to be here, although I'm not in peak form, but nonetheless. And it was quite remarkable that Ministry Mahendra Kumar had sought me out in 2010 when he had the launch of the book. And subsequently, we had met earlier in 2015 when we discussed, this whole idea of this meeting came about. Now, I think I should tell you a little bit about the Institute. Now, we have had quite a lot of success in terms of getting people of the highest distinction to come and give our distinguished lectures. And there are some 15 Nobel laureates, one in Fields Medalist, and all the top scientific people who have done science, Indians who have done science. Now, we have accumulated a bunch of activities. Now, the whole idea of beginning this center was, in fact, to precisely answer the question of this dialogue between Indian philosophical traditions and the West. And it came about because I would get quite upset and offended when people at international conferences abroad, people who are not in the line of Indian thinking, would make the most outrageous remarks about Indian thought, like Locke's